Hello, welcome to our second video on vocabulary for books Unit 2. In this video, we are going to focus on using some of the vocabulary in context. We're also going to ask a few questions using the vocabulary to get us thinking about how these words are used appropriately. And we're also going to focus on the parts of speech associated with each word. So if you have a word like meagerness, how else can that be used? Could it be used as an adjective, for example? Okay, let's press ahead. So the very first thing we're going to cover is just a very quick pronunciation practice. Using some of the words which are important for reading one. So I'm not going to talk about the meaning too much here, but we're just going to practice pronunciation instead. So let's start with number one. Abandon. Abandon. Number two. Meager. Meager. Number three. Misery. Misery. Number four. Yearned for. Yearned for. Number five. Curious. Curious. Number six. Torment. Torment. Number seven. Poverty. Poverty. Number eight. Hopelessness. Hopelessness. Number nine. Shame. Shame. Number 10. Defeat. Defeat. And number 11. Exalted. Exalted. Okay, now that you've heard those words being used by me, this is a chance for you to practice saying these words by yourself. So if you need to practice pronouncing these words, just replay that portion of the video, and that way you can listen to me speak or say the words, and you can just kind of copy what I'm saying. Pay particular attention to this word exalted. Okay, it's not exalted, so it's a aw sound with the A, so that's exalted. Okay, and this one up here, make sure that you're saying meager and not mager. Okay, let's look at some of these words in more detail. So let's think about this word abandon. Here we've got the word abandon. It's being introduced to us as a verb. Now on your vocabulary sheet, we know it can also be used as a noun. So I believe it was introduced as abandonment. But let's think about what this word might mean. What is it like to feel abandoned? Do you think it's a positive feeling or a negative feeling? Yeah, to feel abandoned is a negative feeling. That's because to be abandoned is to kind of feel rejected or isolated, to feel like you've been left behind. Remember, abandonment is leaving someone behind. And when we feel abandoned, we feel like we've been left behind. And that could be by people. Maybe somebody in our family has abandoned us. It could be our friends. Maybe our friends have gone somewhere without us and they've abandoned us. Or it could be much broader. It could be society. Maybe we feel left behind by society. Maybe we feel society has given more opportunities to other people, and that way we feel abandoned. We feel left behind by society. Remember, if we feel abandoned, we're not going to feel good. We're going to feel like we've been left behind. We're going to feel like we're rejected and that we've been maybe neglected in a certain way. So let's focus on these questions. Does abandonment affect a person's life? Think about that. Does abandonment affect a person's life? Think about how you might answer that question. Well, yeah, abandonment often affects a person's life. Think about how it might affect a person's life. Well, if someone feels abandoned, they might feel like they've been left alone. They might feel like they were rejected by the people who were meant to care for them. Now let's think about this question. Can someone become a success after childhood abandonment? What do you think? Can someone become a success after childhood abandonment? Well, in my opinion, a person can become a success after childhood abandonment. Sometimes they feel motivated by that abandonment. They feel like they have something to prove. And there are many examples of people who were abandoned as children who became successful later in life. Let's look at number 3. What are some synonyms of abandon? So by now we should know what a synonym is. A synonym is a word with a similar meaning. So what are some synonyms of abandon? You can look at the picture to help you answer this. Good. Hopefully you notice that abandon has many synonyms. For example, it's got isolated, rejected, deserted, forsaken, unwanted, or even lost. This is because when you are abandoned, you sometimes feel lost. To feel abandoned is to feel lost in some sense. Okay, so by covering this word and looking at how it was used differently, for example, as a verb here and as a noun here, abandonment, we can see that it's a negative word. It's got a lot of negative connotations. Okay, let's move to 2 more words which are covered on your vocabulary sheet. We have meager, which is an adjective, and we have poverty, which is a noun. Let's practice using these in this gap fill. Now remember, an important trick for completing the gap fill is to look at the space and try and decide what type of word would go in each space. For example, what should go in this space? An adjective or a noun? When you figure that out, it makes it much easier to decide which type of word to use. So pause the video and see if you can fill in the correct word. Okay, let's do it together. So, many successful people had a meager childhood. Should be no S here. They lived in poverty and had very little. So, many successful people had a meager childhood. They lived in poverty and had very little. Congratulations if you noticed this little mistake. There shouldn't have been an S here. It should have been a meager childhood. So why meager and not poverty? Well, the word meager fits here because we're describing this noun childhood. So it wasn't just a childhood, it was a meager childhood. And here they lived in something. So this is going to be a noun. They lived in poverty and had very little. Before moving on here, let's talk about this word meager and look at this above meal here. So this is a plate of food. We'd call that a meal. And why is the above meal considered to be meager? Pause the video and see if you can answer that question. Well, the answer is that this meal is considered to be meager because it is sparse. There is a poor amount of food. In other words, there isn't a lot of food on this plate. And remember, meager means to be poor or to have a sparse amount. Okay? Have a poor amount or a sparse amount. Think about whether you would feel satisfied by eating this. Probably not. There isn't a lot of food on this plate to satisfy our hunger on most occasions. So you can think of meager as a negative word. Now, let's talk about this word, hopeless. What can you remember about hopeless? Is it a positive word? No, it's not. What does it mean? Hopeless. Well, to be hopeless is to be without hope. To be without hope. Now, here it's introduced to us as an adjective. But is there a noun and a verb form of hopeless? What do we think? Yes, there is a noun form of hopeless, and there is a verb form of hopeless. Try and think about what those words are. Once you've done that, read this paragraph. And when you come to the gap, try and put in the correct word. Think about whether it's a noun, a verb, or even an adjective that might go in these spaces. Pause the video and do that now. Okay, let's go through it together. So, Many people from poor families feel a sense of hopelessness and give up. Others are motivated despite their poverty and hope for a better life. So hopefully you noticed that in this gap, I put the word hopelessness, and that was a noun. That's a noun form of hopelessness. And here, in the second gap, I put the verb. What was the verb again? Hope. The verb form is hope. So others are motivated despite their poverty and hope for a better life. So let's think about this word a bit more. Why do some people feel they have hopeless lives? Why do some people feel they have hopeless lives? Try and answer that question. Well, one reason people might think they live hopeless lives is because they are poor or come from a meager existence. Remember, some people are born into poverty and they believe there is no chance to escape their poverty. So they might feel that their lives are hopeless because of the life they were born into. Other people might feel they live hopeless lives because they've been abandoned by people that care about them. So they are missing those people that matter to us, those people who love us in their lives, and they will feel their own life is hopeless as a result. Let's focus on the second question. Some people feel shame and defeated by an early life of poverty. Why? Pause the video and try and answer that question. Okay, let's go through the answer together. Well, one reason why people feel shame and defeated by an early life of poverty is that they feel that they do not have the same opportunities in life as other people. Remember, the more opportunities you have, the more confident you feel about your own abilities. And many people who come from poverty, because they have less chances in life, will begin to feel that they don't have the ability to succeed in life. And this will increase their level of shame. Other people feel like it's their fault somehow, that they didn't make money, so are not successful. Or perhaps their family didn't make money, and therefore they are not successful. So there are many reasons why some people feel shame and defeated by an early life of poverty. Let's look at question number 3. Why do some people who had a tormented life become successful? Before answering this question, think about that word tormented. What does that mean? Well, at this stage, you should know tormented means painful. So the question really is asking, why do some people who've had a painful life be, still become successful? Try and answer that question. Okay, so some people who've had a tormented life become successful for many reasons. Some people feel motivated by the pain they've experienced. They never want to feel that pain again, so they develop the skills and the self reliance that is needed to escape that pain. Other people strive to become successful so they can help other people who are living a tormented life. Now let's look at question number 4. How can people overcome a meager childhood? How can people overcome a meager childhood? Remember what meager means? It means either poor or sparse. So how can people overcome a meager childhood? Try and answer this question. Well, people can overcome a meager childhood by developing the skills and traits and abilities that are needed to escape it. For example, some people escape a meager childhood by becoming independent, and as such, learning the abilities needed to escape that meager existence. So, other people might escape a meager childhood by being curious about the world and wanting to experience new things. And then in your reading, you had an example of a person who escaped a meager childhood by being inspired by a visit to Kuwait. He'd never seen a city like this before. He found it was the land of opportunity. So he developed this dream in his mind that he would want to get there, and then he would have opportunity. And as a result of that, he became very hardworking because he wanted to see his dream come into reality. So, a big part of escaping or overcoming a meager childhood is having a dream or a goal about a better life. Okay, now let's talk about this word curious. Curious is an adjective. Here we see it used in a sentence. The cat was curious to see the lizard. And here we have the cat looking all curious. And here we have the lizard. Well, let's ask the first question. Is the cat curious? Yeah, that cat looks curious. Why do we think the cat looks curious? Well, the cat seems very interested in this lizard. He's wondering, what is that thing with 4 legs and a big long tail? So he's slowly stepping closer to it, sniffing it with his nose, trying to work out what it is. So this cat is very interested in this lizard. Probably never seen a lizard like that before. So now that we know the cat is curious, what is the lizard thinking? Try and answer that question. What is the lizard thinking? Well, in fairness, the lizard also looks curious. It might be thinking, oh no, it's going to eat me, but it doesn't appear to be running away. It's probably wondering, what is that big thing? Why is it looking at me like that? And yes, it may be trying to figure out whether this big thing will eat it, but it certainly looks interested in what it sees. That's why the lizard also looks curious. Remember, curious is showing an interest in something. So if we're curious about something, we kind of investigate it and want to know more about it. Now that you know what curious means, what kind of things are you curious about? Pause the video and try and answer that question. Okay, another phrase we learned on our vocabulary sheet this week is keep someone going. Keep someone going. Does anyone remember what this means? Well, to keep someone going is to give that person support. If you keep a person going, it means you are supporting them. Supporting them. Let's focus on these true or false questions. Keeping going means doing your friend's class work for them. Keeping going means doing your friend's class work for them. That would be a false. This is not really what keeping going means. Keep going means to support somebody, but not to actually do their work for them. Instead, what you're trying to do is you're trying to encourage them. You're trying to encourage them to keep trying and be stronger. If you're doing someone's classwork for them, you're not encouraging them to be stronger. You're you're not encouraging them to try. In fact, you're not allowing them to try at all because you're doing their work for them. So this one would be a false. Let's look at number 2. If you are lazy yourself, can you inspire someone else to keep going? If you are lazy yourself, can you inspire someone else to keep going? Do you think this is true or false? In most cases, this would be false. This is especially true if you know the person. It's very hard to encourage someone, support someone, or convince them to keep trying if you yourself are not a person who tries. If you are lazy, then they might decide to be lazy too and just give up. Remember, if you give up, it's basically the opposite of keep going. So if you are lazy yourself, you don't like to try things, you often give things up, then you might find it difficult to inspire someone else to keep going because you're a bad example of someone who keeps going. But again, I said this is kind of true when it's about your friends or people who know you. If the person doesn't know you and doesn't know you're lazy, well, then you might find it is successful. You might find that your words of support are just enough to get them to keep trying. What about number 3? Can you succeed in life if you don't have someone to keep you going? Can you succeed in life if you don't have someone to keep you going? Again, in most cases, this is false. You won't be able to succeed in life if you don't have someone to keep you going. So, usually, we need someone to support us, either our family, our friends. Our friends encourage us, they give us motivation, they tell us to keep trying. In some cases, you might think, well, I'm independent. But even then, you still require someone to keep you going. It just happens that person is yourself. So, yeah, to be successful in life, you need to have someone who keeps you going. Be that a friend, a family member, a role model, or even yourself. Someone has to motivate you, has to encourage you, not to give up. Okay, let's move on to these different vocabulary words. Again, we're going to quickly work on the pronunciation of these 5 words. Then after that, we're going to press ahead and look at how some of these words are used, think a bit more about their meaning, and maybe do a few exercises with these words. Okay, let's work on pronunciation. So number 1, self-reliance. Self-reliance. Number 2, laborious. Laborious. Number 3, struggles. Struggles. Number 4, gives up. Gives up. And number 5, accountable. Accountable. Good. Like our last pronunciation practice, if you have any difficulty saying these words, just replay that portion of the video and try and say the words like I'm saying them. Pay particular attention to this word here. The correct pronunciation is laborious, not laborious. Laborious. Also, pay attention to this one here. This will not always be gives up, but it might be give up, depending on the subject of the sentence. Okay, let's focus a bit on self-reliance. What do you think self-reliance means? Good. Hopefully you realized that self-reliance means independence. So a synonym for self-reliance is independence. Do you think this is a word? Yeah, it is. Self-reliance is a good thing to have. All right, so let's see how this word would be used in this paragraph. So, Gillette Grace may not have been born with perfect eyes, but he was given a supportive mother who instilled in him a sense of hard work, self-reliance, and pride. Gillette was told he could still do amazing things even if he cannot see those things with his eyes. So here, when we're using self-reliance in this gap, we're using it as the same meaning as independence. So he was given a supportive mother who instilled in him a sense of hard work, independence or self reliance, and pride. These are all good qualities. Before we move on, in this space you wrote self reliance. So, what type of word do you think that is? An adjective? A verb? A noun? Self reliance is a noun. Self reliance is a noun. Okay? The clue here was something we call parallel structure. Okay? So hard work here, is the noun. Pride is a noun. Pride is a noun. And as a result, following the parallel structure, we're going to need a noun here. And self-reliance is a noun, so that's fine. Is there an adjective form of self-reliance? Yes, there is. It's called self-reliant. So we get rid of that CE and we replace it with a T. Self-reliant. So I am a self-reliant man because I have self-reliance. That would be it as a noun. Is there a verb form of self-reliance? No, there's not. You cannot self-reliant something or self-reliance something. Okay, let's focus on this word, laborious. So, what do you think laborious means? Have a look at this picture to help you. What are these men doing? They're pushing boulders. Do you think that's an easy task? Could it be described as laborious? Yeah, laborious is difficult. Okay? And what these men are doing is they're pushing these boulders up the slope or these steps, and they are doing something which is laborious, they're doing something which is difficult. Laborious also sometimes means not just difficult, but boring and difficult. Like it's a lot of hard work, a lot of hard and often boring work. Um, Interestingly enough, if this was an escalator, this would be less difficult, so it wouldn't be laborious. Hopefully, he's standing on an escalator. Anyway, so laborious means difficult. Difficult. So before we move on, think about, are there other forms of this word? So is there a verb? Is there a noun? Is there a verb? Try and think of those word forms in your head. Yeah, there is a noun and there is a verb. The verb is labor, to labor. So he labored for long hours. And the noun is also labor. So the labor was very difficult. Labor in that context means work. The labor was very difficult. Okay, so now that we've talked about the different word forms or the different parts of speech for laborious, let's see if we can fill these gaps with the correct word form. So the correct form of this word. So remember, try and decide whether an adjective, verb, or even noun might go in one of these spaces. and then write in the equivalent form of the word. Pause the video and do that now. Okay, let's go through it together. So, as a blind man, Gillette Grace admitted to struggling in school because his schoolwork was laborious. Laborious. He had to learn Braille just to continue studying. That's why his schoolwork was laborious and difficult. It's because he had to learn Braille just to continue studying. For those who don't know, Braille is a type of reading that you do with your fingers instead of your eyes. So you use your sense of touch instead of your sense of sight. However, he had always been an athletic boy and was drawn to the track where he felt free. As much as his stories inspire others to continue his example, Gillette admits that even he labors every now and then. So up here in this space, we were putting the adjective laborious, following the simple subject, be verb, adjective structure. Why was his schoolwork laborious? Well, it was very difficult because he had to learn Braille just to continue studying. And down here in this gap, we had Gillette admits that even he labors every now and then. Here we were choosing the verb. We put an S on the end of that verb because the subject was he. So he labors every now and then. You might be wondering what labors means. So labors means works, but also it kind of means when used as a verb, struggles. So when you labor, it kind of means that you're struggling. So in other words, even he struggles every now and then. Okay, we're going to practice using some of these words in this gap fill again. So here we've got complete the paragraph using the words from the box. Before you do that, if you feel like giving up, here's an inspirational quote by Winston Churchill, the famous British Prime Minister. Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So that's a bit of a motivational quote by Winston Churchill. So Gillette Grace kind of embodied this quote because he had the courage to continue. So even though he faced a great hardship in school by struggling to see, he overcame it by learning Braille to get through his coursework, and he found his interest in school, which was being an athlete. Okay, so he overcame his challenge. He didn't give up. He continued. So here we're going to complete the paragraph using the words from the box. So we've got 4 words. We've got self-reliance, laborious, struggles, give up, and accountable. That's 5 words. I apologize. So here we're going to be putting these words in the gap fill. Now, at this stage, you should know how to do these exercises. One of the first things you should do is write down whether each of these words are an adjective, a verb, a noun, or an adverb. Okay, so see whether you can remember what type of words they are. And then when you're coming to the gaps, do the same thing. So look at the gap and try and figure out whether that word needs an adjective, verb, or noun, or even adverb. You can do that by looking at the words around the space. That will help you decide what type of word goes in here. Also, remember the meanings of the word. That's going to be very important because you'll be able to find clues in the sentence, which will correspond with the meaning. Sometimes it can be useful to read the next sentence, but I don't think that will be useful in this context. Okay, so very simply complete the paragraphs using the words from this box. Pause the video and do that now. Okay, let's go through it together. So, according to Steve Jobs, having self-reliance and independence helps people succeed in life. Sometimes, when things feel laborious and when life presents many struggles, people might give up. Independence helps us not give up. However, while independence is important, we shouldn't forget we are accountable to those around us. Okay, so hopefully you realized the word here was the noun, and it was a noun, self-reliance, again following the parallel structure. And the clue here was that it went with independence, and of course we know independence and self-reliance are synonyms, so this would be the perfect word to go here. Okay. Here, sometimes when things feel laborious, okay, so a synonym for laborious would be difficult, so that works here. Sometimes when things feel difficult, yeah, that works. So we have a laborious, that can go there instead. And when life presents many struggles, when life presents many struggles, struggles goes here. Struggles, remember, are difficulties and challenges, things that we struggle or we find it difficult to overcome. So when life presents many struggles, people might give up. Give up. So to give up is to not try anymore. To not try anymore. By the way, you should know this is a verb. This is a verb because it's following the modal might. Independence helps us not give up. However, while independence is important, we shouldn't forget we are accountable. We are accountable to those around us. Accountable here being the adjective. And remember, accountable means being responsible to another person. So we shouldn't forget we are responsible to other people. In other words, you can't just be independent and think it's there, well, there's a difference between being independent and doing things on your own, and being selfish and thinking that you don't need other people or what you the actions that you do don't affect other people. There's a difference. Independence is kind of doing it on your own, while selfishness is kind of showing that you don't care for your accountability to other people. You are responsible to people in your lives, and that's just part of being alive. Okay, so Before moving on from these words, we're just going to do these very quick exercises. So we're going to go through a quick example. So self-reliance. When someone is self-reliant, she is 1, independent, or 2, dependent. We're going to do this one together. And of course, the answer is independent. Self-reliant is when we are independent. Remember, independence is a synonym for self-reliance, and self-reliant is a synonym for independent. Okay? All right, now that we've practiced doing that, I want you to choose the correct options with 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pause the video and see if you can do that now. Okay, so laborious. So laborious is something, okay, starting here, is something that's laborious, 1, easy, or 2, difficult? Question mark. Is something that's laborious, 1, easy, or 2, difficult? Well, hopefully you realize the answer was difficult. Again, a synonym for laborious is difficult. Struggle. When you struggle, do you work hard or do you have an easy life? Question mark. Okay, when you struggle, you work hard. You work hard. Okay? So remember, if we're struggling, we're trying to work hard to overcome a difficult task. Gives up. When you give up, do you take a break or continue? Question mark. When you give up, do you take a break or continue? Yeah, when you give up, you take a break. You take a break. If you continue, then you're not giving up. Accountable. Accountable means you have responsibilities to others or you are independent. So accountable means you have responsibilities to others or you are independent. Okay, so we just covered that in the last slide. So accountable means you have responsibilities to others. You have responsibilities to others. Some clever students might have realized that you can be independent and still accountable to other people, and that's true. That's true. But here we have an exact synonym. You have responsibilities to others. So that basically means accountable. All right, let's move to the listening vocabulary. So we have here 10 words. 10 words. We've actually already covered one of them, to keep someone going. And we're going to just at this point work on the pronunciation of these 10 words. So, number 1, average. Average. Number 2, devastated. Devastated. Number 3, diagnosis. Diagnosis. Number 4, go far beyond. Go far beyond. Number 5, make look cool. Make look cool. Number 6, misconception. misconception. Number 7, persevere, persevere. Number 8, stereotypical, stereotypical. Number 9, hardship, hardship. Number 10, keep someone going, keep someone going. This someone can be um, uh, a pronoun. It's a pronoun, so it's like keep me going, or keep you going, or keep him going. That's the reason the someone is in brackets. Okay, let's push ahead. So here we've got the word devastated. And devastated is an adjective. It's an adjective. And take a minute to think about what this word means. Devastated. Think about whether it's positive or if it's negative. What do you think? Yeah, devastated is a negative word. Why is it negative? What does it actually mean? Well, it means to be extremely sad about something, or sometimes shocked about something, but in an extremely sad way. So when you're devastated, you're not just sad or a little bit disappointed, you're extremely sad. It can be stronger in some ways than depressed, even. Devastated is a very strong word to describe sadness. So it's an extreme form of sadness. So if I was to say I feel devastated, I am showing that I feel extremely sad. Okay, so here we're going to fill in the blanks, but we're going to be using these words down here. So we have stereotype, devastated, hopeless, and misconception. What do you think these words might mean? Well, we've talked about what devastated means. Devastated is when you're extremely sad or shocked about something. What does hopeless mean? Hopeless is when you're without hope. Without hope. What about a misconception? A misconception. Misconceptions are ideas that are wrong or untrue, but still people believe them. So there are many misconceptions in the world. Often people put them forward as facts. They believe they're facts, but they're not facts. Finally, the, the first one, stereotype. Think about what this might mean. Well, you should know from your vocabulary sheet that stereotypical means a widely held but sometimes incorrect opinion. And a stereotype is that incorrect opinion. So that it's that incorrect opinion about a group of people that is widely held, but isn't always true. So yeah, it's not best to describe it not always as an incorrect opinion, but it's often incorrect because it doesn't have much evidence. It's just a widely held opinion about people that isn't usually true. And the stereotype is that opinion, that widely held belief that might be false. Okay, so let's quickly go through this. Let's try and fill in the blanks using these words down below. Think about their word forms. So whether they're being written as an adjective, verb, noun. Think about what type of word goes in the gaps. Will it be an adjective, word, or noun? Verb or noun? And then also think about the meanings of these words. These words all have different meanings. So what words would best fit in these gaps? Okay, pause the video and see if you could fill in the blanks. Okay, let's go through this together. So this man is devastated, devastated in his family. How do we know he's devastated? Well, he looks extremely sad. Most hopeless people can share his feelings of hopelessness. So most hopeless people can share his feelings of hopelessness. So here, the most hopeless people were describing people by using the adjective hopeless. Okay, the adjective hopeless. The most hopeless people can share his feelings of hopelessness. That's because they're hopeless too. They are also without hope. There is a misconception that men don't cry, but that is just a stereotype. Men and women both have similar emotions. So what it means here is that there is an idea that's wrong or untrue, that men don't cry, but that is just a stereotype. It's a widely held belief that in this case is wrong. Men and women both have similar emotions. Okay, let's talk a bit more about this word misconceptions. So here are some common misconceptions. We have the common misconception that coffee is made from beans. We have a common misconception that Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world. We have the common misconception that Napoleon was short. And we have a common misconception that Newton discovered gravity after an apple fell on his head. What makes these misconceptions? Well, people believe that these are true, but they aren't true. Let's talk about the first one. Coffee is made from beans. Well, that's not actually true. Coffee is made from seeds. It just so happens that the seed is called the coffee bean. A bean is very different from a seed, but they call the seeds of coffee coffee beans. It's just their name. They're actually seeds. So coffee is not made from beans, it's actually made from seeds. That's why this is a misconception. People take this to be a fact, but it's not actually true. What about this one? Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world. Lots of people think this is true. After all, Mount Everest is very big. It is the tallest mountain in the Himalayas. And it's famous for being the highest point on Earth. But it's not technically the tallest mountain. And that's because one mountain, even though it doesn't go up as high as Everest, actually is taller. And that's because its base is in the sea. So there is a mountain called Mauna Kea, which is technically taller than Everest. But I think a quarter of the mountain, or possibly even more, maybe half or maybe three quarters, is actually inside or underneath water. So even though it doesn't appear as high as Everest, technically it is taller. And that's why this Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world is actually a misconception. Many people believe this, but it's not technically true. Let's talk about this one. Napoleon was short. Again, this is a common misconception. We sometimes have the word a Napoleon complex for a person who has problems because of their height. They believe they're small and try and compensate for it in certain ways, right? Pretending to be stronger than what they actually are. But in reality, Napoleon was never short. Napoleon was taller than the average French person. It was something like 5'10" or 5'9", which is taller than the average French person of his day. In fact, it's taller than lots of people around the world today. Finally, this one. Newton discovered gravity after an apple fell on his head. This is a common myth, and it's a common misconception. This never actually happened. It was just a story told after Newton discovered gravity. The story wasn't told by Newton. It wasn't even told by a person who ever met Newton. It was a made-up story. This never actually happened. So, these are all misconceptions above. Now that we've talked about them, did you believe that any of these misconceptions were factual? You probably did. And that's because a misconception is always going to be a widely held belief or an idea or something that people believe is true, but in fact is wrong or untrue. So don't be surprised if you believe that these were all facts. And were you surprised to find out there were misconceptions? Probably. Well, how can you check if these are false? Well, the best way to check nowadays is to look it up on Google. And this is how we try and find common misconceptions these days. We do some research and we try and figure out whether things we believe are actually true. You'd be surprised by what you find. Okay, let's focus on this word. Persevere. What does persevere mean? To persevere is to continue trying to do something difficult in a determined way. So here we look at this picture. What's going on? Well, this person is helping this person up a mountain. Over here, we see this poor man, kind of like a Sisyphus-like character. Sisyphus is from the Greek myth. He was condemned by the Greek gods to always push a boulder up a mountain. And when he reached the top, the boulder would fall back down and he would have to keep pushing it up again. So yeah, this man looks like he's doing the same thing. He looks like he's trying to push that boulder up the hill. Okay. So what's going on in this picture? The man is trying to push the boulder up the hill. Hopefully. It could be that the boulder's just standing here and then he's resting on it. But it looks like he's trying to push it up the hill. So considering what's happening in these pictures, how do they represent perseverance? Or how do they show perseverance? Well, remember, perseverance is to keep trying to do something in a determined way. So when that determination is kind of not giving up, and that keep trying is not giving up. So remember, if you persevere, it's you keep trying. So here they're showing perseverance because they are trying to get up to the top of the mountain. They are helping each other. This man must be tired, but he wants them both to get up. So he's helping his friend get up. His friend isn't giving up. He's persevering too. And this man over here is showing perseverance because he won't let this boulder roll down. He keeps trying to push it up the mountain. Okay? To do it in a determined way. Okay, let's focus on this word stereotype. Well, let's practice here by looking at these two pictures. Let's look at this man over here. Then after that, look at this man over here. By looking at these pictures, very quickly, can you guess the qualities of each of these men? Make a list of two qualities. So two things or two adjectives maybe you would use to describe this man. Then make a list of maybe two qualities you would use to describe this man. Did you describe this person as smart? Who do you think is smarter? This person or this person? Did you describe this person as strong? Who do you think is stronger? This person or this person? Who do you think is more popular? This person or this person? Who do you think is better with computers? This person or this person? Now that you've made a list and you've thought about some qualities to describe this person and some qualities to describe this person, ask this question. How do you know that you are correct? There's a very simple answer to this. You don't. Because if you have never met either of them, you cannot be sure. It might just happen that this man over here is far more popular than him. Maybe he has lots of friends, while this person has maybe one or two friends. It might surprise you, but this man might be stronger. Perhaps this man over here is a weightlifter, and this man over here hasn't been chosen on the team because of his strength, but maybe because of his pace. Maybe it's because he's fast. In terms of which one is smarter, maybe it's this man over here. Maybe he's got a scholarship for Oxford or Harvard, and he's a straight A student, while this student over here always fails. And again, in terms of who's better with computers, maybe it's this man over here. Maybe he's a programmer, or he's got his Oxford scholarship because he's fantastic with computers. He's got great IT skills. Well, maybe this person has never touched a computer in his life. The first exercise you did was coming up with qualities to describe these people. What you were doing is you were creating a stereotype. Okay? You were looking at these people and you were forming an opinion on some widely held idea about these people. So usually when you see a person like this, we tend to think, well, he's smart, but he's not popular. He's probably not very athletic. but he might be a straight A student. Well, when you look at this guy, you think he's an athlete, he's popular, but maybe less intelligent. Maybe less intelligent. The point is, we don't have the facts to help us know if that is true. We've never met these people. And that's why that's an example of a stereotype. Here I've got a widely held opinion because of what these people look like, but it might be incorrect. Now notice that I said might. A stereotype isn't always incorrect, but it often is, or it might be. So the important thing about stereotypes is when we have a widely held opinion of people that are sometimes incorrect, is to know when we are using them. So never assume a stereotype is true. Okay, let's talk about this word. Hardship. Hardship. Think about what this word might mean. Is it a positive word? Is it a negative word? Good. Hardship is a negative word. Hardship is a negative word. Why is it negative? What does it mean? Well, a hardship is something that makes your life difficult. So hardships are many things that make your life difficult. Well, keeping that in mind, what is happening in this picture above? So in this picture here, how does this represent a hardship? Or how does this represent hardship? Well, here, the difficult thing in this person's life, or the hardship in this person's life, is having no money. So this person has no savings. They've emptied their piggy bank or their safety deposit box, and there's not a lot of money in it. So you could say this person is currently in a state of poverty, or they have a meager amount of money. Either way, it looks like they are poor, they don't have a lot of money, so this is a hardship. Why is it a hardship? Well, it's difficult to be successful in life if we don't have any money. Let's look at this picture. Why is this a hardship? Why is this a hardship? Well, here we can see this is a very difficult situation. Why? Because the man appears to be in some body of water, possibly the ocean, or a sea, or even a river, and he looks like he may be struggling to survive. So he looks like, in other words, like he'd be drowning if this man didn't save him. So if you are drowning, it is a hardship. It's a difficulty. So this is an example of a hardship. So before you move on, think about this question. Have you ever had a hardship? Or have you ever had hardship? Okay, let's move to our final 5 vocabulary words, some of which we will be talking about after this. So here we're going to be just practicing the pronunciation. So again, I'm going to say the number and I'm going to name each word twice. So number 1, able-bodied. Able-bodied. Number 2, has transitioned. Has transitioned. Number 3, awareness. Awareness. Number 4, Have rebounded. Have rebounded. And number 5, inspiring. Inspiring. Okay, so let's talk about this word has transitioned. Has transitioned. So, has transitioned. So let's look at the picture over here. Okay. In the picture on the left, that's this picture, what is the transition taking place? What is the transition taking place? Well, the transition taking place appears to be buildings and architecture associated with improving climate change. Climate change. So you can tell that you've gone from each of these buildings, some which are very costly to the environment in terms of construction, to more environmentally aware buildings, and finally finishing with windmills. Okay. So I guess the transition which is taking place here is environmental awareness. We are becoming more environmentally aware in what we do. So why did I say for example, the construction of buildings have transitioned to a more environmentally aware um, position? What do I mean by saying has transitioned there? Have transitioned? Well, I mean to have changed. When we transition, it means that we change. Okay, so a transition means to change from one thing to another thing. So here we have a list of different words associated with transition. So in the above picture, can you find any synonyms for transition? Can you find any synonyms for transition? Okay, so hopefully you came across a word like change, move, switch, um, shift. So to shift from one thing to another is to transition, or even to convert from one thing to another. There's also a word called passage being used as a verb, and you can passage from one thing to another. So when you transition to something, you kind of change what you're doing, or you cross into it. So it kind of means like changing your path, changing your path. So a student will transition from a place of learning into a career. Career. So thinking about talking about my own career, I've transitioned from a student into being a teacher. Into being a teacher. Um, so you might transition from learning about medicine to doing medicine. Doing medicine. So that's a transition. That's a change. Okay, let's focus on this word, awareness. Awareness. Think about what awareness means. Okay. So when you are awareness, you are seeing a situation, you are noticing a situation, you are realizing what's around you. So make a list of how these three pictures show awareness. So here we have a young girl who's got she's got a whole lot of mathematical symbols around her. Here we've got aware of dog, please pet dog, and here we've got a lady using binoculars. Think carefully about how awareness is used as a word. Okay, so awareness will always involve kind of seeing in some sort of way. Seeing in some sort of way. So here, awareness will often also mean kind of a deeper understanding or a deeper way of seeing. So here we have the girl who is aware of these mathematical concepts. So she's aware of what's happening around her. In fact, she's aware of what she's learning. So she's thinking about all of these things. She's kind of seeing them. She's seeing how they all might be different. In some ways, how they all might be connected. So she's aware of these different mathematical rules. Okay, so she's aware of what she needs to be learning. So she's showing awareness. She's not considering this stuff, not thinking about it, not seeing it. She's not just going off and playing with her dolls. No, she's been introduced to these maths and she's aware of it. So she's showing awareness. She's learning about all of these things. She's seeing them. What about this one? Aware of dog. Please pet dog. Well, this is a very clever one because when we're saying aware of dog, we're just kind of mean watch out for the dog. Remember, aware is always connected with seeing. But this is a clever sign because it's like, please pet dog. So here, it's kind of really showing awareness. It's a deeper way of seeing. So here, even though it says aware of dog, you might look, the dog looks quite sad. It looks like a very cute dog. It looks like the sort of dog that you wouldn't run away from. So here it's saying maybe please pet the dog, because it's asking you to think about how this dog might feel. It's asking you to think about how this dog might feel. So it's asking you to look beyond, oh, it's a dog, it might bite me, and think about how this dog might feel. It looks sad, so maybe you'd go over to pet it to make it feel better. And here's a very simple one. The woman is showing awareness by using binoculars. So she's trying to see what's happening around her. So awareness is always involves some sort of seeing. But often it's kind of seeing in a deeper way. All right, this is our final slide. So we're going to think about this one, have rebounded. Think about what to rebound is. So what does have rebounded mean? Well, rebound means to kind of bounce back from. So, in a physical sense, you can rebound a ball. So, let's say this little red dot is a ball. This over here is a wall. And I throw it up here and it goes boing. That's the kind of bounce back. You could say it rebounded from the wall. So, rebounded means to bounce back. But when we use rebounded, we don't just use it to talk about a ball and a wall, let's say. We kind of use it to talk about ourselves in terms of a recovery. So we have rebounded from something, we have bounced back from it. We were in this condition, but now we've progressed to another condition. So now that you've thought about that, think about things you might rebound from. Well, if you have a serious illness and then get better, you have rebounded from it. So, having thought about the definition of rebound, how are these pictures related to rebound? Think about that. How are these pictures related to a rebound? Okay, so you were hopefully thinking about the definition of rebound. You were coming up with things like to bounce back from, to recover from, or to progress from one state to another. And here you were, or even better, to progress from one negative state to a positive state. And hopefully you connected each of these with an illness. So these are all different ways that somebody might rebound from an illness. In other words, recover or bounce back from an illness. So in this first picture here, we have people eating, we have a picture of vitamins. And vitamins are one way that you can rebound from an illness because they can give you a healthier body. And again, here we have a selection of healthy food. We've got all sorts of things like blueberries, avocados, lovely tomatoes, making me hungry looking at it. Oh, salmon. Okay, and this is all healthy food. Healthy food. Okay, so again, this could be used to rebound from an illness. Again, to recover, to go from that negative illness state to a positive state, which is recovery and feeling better. And here we've got a picture of a man who is running. And what he's doing here is he's staying fit. Staying fit. And again, staying fit is a good way of getting over an illness. So it shows that you're bouncing back and recovering from it. So because it means if you're staying fit, it means you are less likely to get sick again. And if you're running as enthusiastically as this man is running, it shows that you have recovered from your illness. So all of these can be connected to this word rebound when we think of recovering from an illness. Okay, so we have reached the end of this video. The vocabulary we covered today was only part of what's covered on your vocabulary sheets. But we have covered some key ideas. So remember, with most of the words at this level, you should be thinking about how the words can be used in different ways. So with each of the words on your vocabulary sheet, you should always be thinking about whether they can be used in different word forms, such as adjectives, nouns, or verbs. And you should also be thinking about how to use these words in kind of natural speak, or what ideas can be communicated using these words. Remember, it's always helpful when you're doing your speaking or doing your writing that you use the unit vocabulary. Don't just try to use one or two words. So when you're describing every um, poor situation, don't just use the word poor, poor, poor. You've got You've been introduced to different words. You've been introduced to meager. You've been introduced to poverty. Try and use these words going forward. If you do that, you'll simply get better marks. And of course, you'll be better at producing your English because you're improving the actual use of your vocabulary. You're using the words you've learned. Okay, thank you for listening. And have a good day or night, whatever time it is there.